Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to an update. It's been a few weeks now since our last one. We're glad to have everyone on. Quick introductions. I am Michael Kirkaris. I'm one of the founders here at Deliverr. And to my left, we have, you want to introduce yourself, Mike?
Yeah, my name is Michael also, but I didn't get the Michael@Deliverr email address because I was second. So I got mguard@Deliverr, by the way, if you want to email me. And I'm a product manager at Deliverr. And yeah, so I'm here to help answer questions, and then when they're pertinent, provide product updates and things like that. So.
Yep. And if you have questions around this one warehouse program, forwarding, things around sending in inventory, Mike Guard is your guy.
Yeah.
We've even had him live answer support questions on here before. And so feel free to leave that. And so we're going to go through a quick high-level update of everything going on. And then feel free to leave questions on the right-hand side as we're talking. And we'll try to get to pretty much everyone's question. We really like these sessions. They tend to be a little bit smaller, a little more intimate. If you guys were on like the Wish webinar last week, it was pretty hectic and just a lot of activity, and we kind of ran out of a lot of questions. And so we try to use this time to be really in depth. So we'll call you out by name and make sure to engage everyone. All right, so let's go through the updates. First, let's go through the operations updates, and things are certainly starting to look a lot stronger operationally than they have throughout, let's say early first half of May. So first, warehouses remain open. They are registered as an essential business. So that is very important to remember. All warehouses in the Deliverr network remain operational. On the inbound side, we are continuing this. Now, it does look like CDC is starting to come out with new information that may change how we think about receive times. We initially went from 48 hours to 72 hours, extended it by 24 hours, where people send inventory to Deliverr, and essentially it'll sit in a warehouse for 24 hours and then gets received. And that is because the CDC issued guidance that virus sits on cardboard, can sit on cardboard for up to 24 hours. We are monitoring that because certain studies have come out with conflicting things. So we just want to make sure we're positive there. Because obviously a 24-hour delay, it impacts everybody, and 24-hour delay with one seller has a reverberating effect. So we're going to see if we can tighten that up. But still right now, at least for this next few weeks, we're going to maintain the 72-hour receiving on inbounds. Now, what we did do, you might have seen it last week, is we came out with a automated flow to resolve non-compliance. And so you can, it'll basically flag inbounds that are non-compliant, and then it'll prompt you to go through this system saying, okay, please map this to the right items. And that has actually been tightening up receive times quite a bit. And if you have questions around that, feel free to leave them here. On the outbound side, orders on the order side, we have had to deactivate one of our locations in McDonough, Georgia, and this one's been obviously fairly frustrating. This came in late last week. It's a smaller location, so not a lot of merchants are in this location. The big locations in Georgia are in Alpharetta, and those locations are actually operating fine. This is one of the smaller locations, McDonough, Georgia, and we have been having some technical issues with the warehouse on the API side on how they return certain statuses of orders, which was resulting in late shipments when actually we were shipping on time. And because of that, we've had to do a deep dive into their WMS to resolve these issues. And so this is continuing today. If this continues for another 1 to 2 days, we are going to start for SKUs that are just in this warehouse. We are going to transfer them to the nearby locations, most likely to Alpharetta. So this is kind of the last week we're giving ourselves to figure out, okay, can we really get this across the finish line, or do we think this is going to continue going on? If we think it's going to continue going on, we're going to transfer that inventory out and expect that to be in one of the humming locations in the next week. So really apologize for that. I think there's a lot of learnings, for the Deliverr team. We've been, as I mentioned, we're doing Black Friday volumes, Cyber Monday volumes every single day. And because of that, we've had to onboard a lot of new warehouses very quickly. And in this case, you had some issues, and with those issues, you just didn't have a strong integration, an integration that had certain issues with it. And so now we're doing the proper things to resolve it, but we should have been, we should have done this beforehand. And so this has informed how we bring on new warehouses, how we check for new warehouses, how we test new warehouses. And so, the likelihood of this happening again should be much lower. But we do apologize for this. It's clearly, not a good showing for us and for the handful of sellers that have been impacted. We're truly sorry on that. And then, so standard orders early in the week, they are continuing to be delayed, being delayed. For example, you have orders that come in on the weekend, they're standard service level, they'll ship on Tuesday, on-time delivery, those not affected. However, the number of standard shipments that we are delaying is declining quite a bit. And so you're only seeing smaller and smaller portions of orders being declined. There's two reasons why. Well, let's say three reasons why. Number one is that, early in the COVID pandemic, we were running the labor issues where you couldn't get as many workers in the warehouses because they were either afraid, they were sick, or a combination. And also you had to really increase spacing, make sure everyone's wearing protective gear and those types of things. And so that was number one. And so now you're able to get a little bit more labor into the warehouses, those warehouses are able to hire a little bit more where they had gaps on the labor side. Number two is that we've onboarded a lot of new warehouses, like I mentioned, which did have that unintended effect with McDonough, Georgia. But in other locations, it's been quite effective. We onboarded a very large location in New Jersey and another really large location in Southern California. And that has given us a lot more capacity. And number three, we've been much more sophisticated around how we operate on the weekends. And typically before pre-COVID, we essentially didn't mobilize the network on weekends. There wasn't a whole lot we did. Certain carriers did operate on weekends, but we didn't do a whole lot on the warehousing side. And now we are seeing more than half the network operating on weekends. And at the beginning of COVID, they were just prepping the inventory, and now we're starting to get into Sunday pickups where they're actually handing it off to carriers late in the weekend on Sundays. And so that's certainly, those three elements have really helped us bring down that rate. And we're hoping to get to a really stable state where there's no more shipment delays. Our on-time shipping percentage, we are monitoring that. We're trying to get that up to 99%. Right now it is in the 80s. But we have full visibility around that. We've built an understanding around where are the culprits, where are we missing on OTS, and how can we get up to 99%. On-time delivery, though, throughout this has remained effective at around 95%. And that's for 2-day, non-2-day, pretty much across the board. On-time delivery has been the same. Fast tag coverage. So this is certainly a piece that has come up a lot and a lot of questions around it. If you have questions around it, please let us know. We had to reduce 2-day coverage across the country. And we had to reduce it quite a bit because you saw issues with carriers. You saw late shipments. And for us, I think it was a big learning point where we need to figure out how to diversify our carriers and need to have build optionality in the network. And you saw a lot of regional carriers doing well, and then a lot of the national carriers having a harder time. And so for us, it's, obviously we've accelerated the number of carriers we're using, and we've been expanding that in a lot of different warehouses. So if you're seeing us fulfilling a lot of orders of yours, you're probably seeing a breadth of different carriers now that are being leveraged, which is a good thing. And that builds a lot more redundancy in the network, so you can withstand a case like this. And but also what you've seen, the second piece is that the national carriers have started catching up to volume, and they've started really improving in the past few weeks, which is great to see. And so Last week, we made the announcement to increase 5% on our fast tag coverage. This week, we are now moving that up 15%. So really big gain this week. We're hoping next week we can do even a bigger jump than this. So now, if you're in 4 warehouses, you get around half of the country on 2-day. If you're in 3 warehouses, 31%, 2 warehouses, 25%, 1 warehouse, 12%. Typically before, if we were looking at this 3 weeks ago, if you were in 4 warehouses, you were getting around 20%. So this is more than double what it was before. And so hopefully that should help you get a little more visibility on these listings. And this also accounts for next day. So if you're on our Shopify 2-day and next day program, which is a blended 2-day next day program, you're also going to see our next day coverage or free next day coverage expand as well. And so we're really excited about this and are hoping to get this back to normal, which is obviously 100% if you're in 4+ warehouses, or 99.5% if technically speaking. So we're working on that. We are seeing improvements, expect to see continued improvements. It's going the right direction, which is important. And so that's, if you have more questions around it, how to read your coverage maps, let us know. It's pretty easy to look at it. If you go into an item, then you can see the coverage maps, and it varies based on the warehouse. Right now, the coverage transit maps are very unique based on the areas that are COVID impacted. You are seeing also impacts from some of the activity been going on over the past few days. And so in there, you can see a real-time coverage map of where you're offering 2-day and where you're not. And here we're just talking a little bit about the reasons why coverage is the way it is. So now let's get into selling strategies and category performance, because this is really unique and really interesting and moving in very bizarre ways. I think the CFO of Walmart went up, and when they announced earnings a few weeks ago, he said every month is like a new quarter this year. And we're seeing very similar trends. Each month is very different, and you're seeing categories move very rapidly. And so let's start first with arts and crafts and sewing. And so art supplies was probably, I think, in the Deliverr network, the fastest moving category in early April. So there was not a category moving faster than art supplies. I think part of that is skewed, though, because you don't have a ton of SKU coverage in arts because it's collectively a much smaller catalog than something like health or clothing. But regardless, it was moving on average. Art supply items were moving 2-3x the next fastest moving item at that time, which were health items. And so, but you do see a return to normal. Not quite what normal was. And normal is now a very relative term. I think there is a new normal that we have now. And so it's down around 20% weekly, down 30% monthly. So pretty big movements, pretty big downward adjustments. Really interesting to kind of see here. And we'll see kind of how that continues. We are seeing a little bit of a rebound to art supplies this week. So this was taken, these snapshots are taken on the weekend. And so this was, we are seeing a little bit of a rebound. We'll see how that kind of trends through the beginning of June. One thing also to think about here, and another reason you're seeing this, you are approaching graduation. And so schools are starting to end. And so you're going to start seeing, this is typically very low season. Arts come back in August. Late July, August is when you see this category rebound. And then you see it do really well in, in December time. But obviously have this strange behavior due to COVID with students all of a sudden having to work from home. And that really kind of changing the dynamic nature of this category. So again, when we look at category in the Deliverr world, we look at super category and subcategories. Super categories, arts, craft, and sewing. Super category, let's look at scrapbooking. And so this was one that really took off in early April. You see that massive logarithmic explosion, and then coming back down very quickly in May. And now we're kind of back into really what was the normals before. Crafting, that's actually continuing to be strong, and that makes more sense. If you look at scrapbooking, that's more of a one-time purchase. Crafting or things that you're gonna, like Play-Doh, things like that, you're gonna continue purchasing that over time. And so that's why you see a nice new normal continuing, really pretty much flat if you look at weekly. Next super category, this is a big one, home. And home, you saw hit and peaked kind of later in April. You saw health really take off late March, then you saw arts and crafts, and then you saw home. And so home, we're down 20% monthly, then down around 10% weekly. And so this one's been interesting. It's obviously, there's certainly a new normal here. Kitchen and dining, though, continue to kind of come back down to this new normal. Weekly we're down 5%, monthly down 70%, but still, if we're looking at this, comparing it to March and February, it's certainly higher than before. Personal care, this was a category that was obviously been doing very well. You are seeing a very different, trend here, where you do see things coming back down. Looks like it's coming back down to normal, down 16% weekly, 45% monthly. But this category is very interesting because I do believe the dynamic nature of this category is going to change, because personal care typically tend to be in-store purchases. And now you're seeing that all happen online, of course. And so I do think for personal care, typically online was focused on the long tail of this category. And I do think you can get away with selling Oral-B toothbrushes, some of these big Crest toothpaste, big name brands online. I do think that's going to be moving fairly quickly. So I think it's a little bit misleading. I do think personal care as a whole is increasing just on the 3-piece side, because it's 3-piece sellers tend to be more long tail on the selection. You are seeing this kind of a little bit lower than it could be. I do think there's more upward. There's definitely more potential in this category than what we're seeing here. Bath and body, you see really nice, strong improvements here. But then obviously this downward adjustment, down 20% weekly and then 47% monthly. Clothing has probably been one of the most unique categories. And so with clothing, you saw a really, really hard dip as we entered COVID on the clothing side. And disclaimer around if you're looking at the clothing catalog with Deliverr, we tend to be indexed on cheaper clothing. Premium brand is not typically where we sit. We sit under $50 type clothing. So you see a huge depression in volume as we get into late March. You also saw really slow replenishment on this side. And then what you've seen is this really huge recovery, and really kind of getting higher than it was before. And I think a huge reason why is because you're seeing these really big department stores like Macy's and Nordstrom that are closed. And so what that has done is open up a huge opportunity for cheap clothing and affordable clothing. And so we're seeing that do really well. You're seeing this in the bag side, dresses, and you also see now we're going to a new season. And this is really the first time in modern history we're going into a new season, the summer season, without having a strong physical presence on the apparel side, which opens up a huge opportunity for apparel sellers in the Deliverr network. So these sellers have certainly been doing well. We're down a little bit monthly, but actually, early trends in this week do show a little bit of a recovery here. So really interesting to watch this. And then here you see bags continue to be very strong. And so this is just a recap. Make sure your products are being seen. You have a ton of traffic, ton of shoppers coming in online. I was talking to one of the companies on this list, one of the biggest discovery platforms in the world, and they were talking about their new initiative and why they launched it, and their new e-commerce initiative, and really saying, when I asked them why they did it, they said there's just a huge influx of people coming in online in a way that we've never seen before in modern history. And so make sure you're in as many channels as you can. These channels help capture this different traffic coming in from all these different channels. And so we're trying to build programs with pretty much every channel listed on here. Most of them are already out, but there's more coming in. And so, yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. I've seeing already a few questions around it. And I think that is it. And so outside of that, we're continuing free inbound promotions for items in very high volume, high demand categories. It's evolving very fast. As I mentioned, you're seeing different categories pick up different months of the year. And so if you see that, you're going to see a Deliverr free inbound pre-populating your account with SKUs. And that's it. And so with that, let's jump into questions. MG, you want to start it?
Yeah. So I'll start at the kind of the first question that we got, which was around, what are the accepted barcode formats for Deliverr products? So I've posted some answers to those questions, but I think it just makes sense to walk through them out loud. So there's 3 types of formats that we currently accept. There's a UPC, a DSKU, which is Deliverr's own unique barcode, And then there's an Amazon, like you can either use your FN SKU, or if you have a unique ASIN, you can use that. So those are the 3 types of formats. Now, with that said, we'll also accept specific like variations of like GTIN, so or GTIN, right? So like we don't accept the 14 digit, but we do accept, 8, 12, and 13, which are also can be called like an EAN or UPC, but just to make the language clear. I've linked to a support document that outlines the barcodes that we use or that we accept. And yeah, it's obviously, and then there's another caveat to this, which is that per SKU and Deliverr, you can have up to 5 barcode types. So what this means is, let's say, your UPC changes. You can add on your next inbound for that product, or at any point, beforehand, if you don't want to forget it, right? You can go into Deliverr, go to the inventory details page, select that SKU, and then you can add a distinct barcode for that SKU, and you can add up to 5. Or let's say you had UPC, but you decided that like, hey, it's easier for me to manage my Amazon inventory if I just have everything labeled from my manufacturer the same way. So if you do that, then what you can do is have you started with UPC, you could just add the FN SKU and then just use that moving forward. And then per inbound, you could also send in mixed, barcoded units, right? To us, it doesn't matter. Like, as long as the barcodes are registered to that SKU and you don't, as long as the barcodes are registered to that SKU and Deliverr says that it's an accepted barcode format, then you can do that. All right.
Good question here from Nick. I activated the Google 2-day fast tag, and I think he's talking about Google Shopping Actions by Google. When is Deliverr able to have Google Direct integration? Same question for Etsy. And so so we've been rapidly expanding the number of direct integrations available. First one we did was Walmart, and then we followed that up with Wish, which has been doing really well for us, as we talked about last week, as many of you guys are probably on that webinar. And then we just did early this week, late last week, you saw the announcement around eBay. We did a direct integration with eBay. So we are ramping up the number of direct integrations we're building. Google is certainly on that list. Etsy is a very interesting one, actually, and would love to get your thoughts, Nick, on performance on Etsy. I know Marketplace Pulse just released an article this morning saying Etsy is seeing record level sales. We actually have not, as a team, been evaluating that one very closely yet, just because we've seen that it's been hard to get approved, because I guess it needs to be items that are not manufactured, or I think it needs to be made at your home. And so we didn't really focus on that channel, but we're really open to that if you're seeing good velocity there. On a Google Direct integration, which was the second piece, was certainly on the list. I think that the next planned integration we have is Amazon Direct. And so that's going to be coming out fairly soon, because we do have a lot of sellers using that, and a lot of sellers using us as an FBM backup. The other thing that's come up really common with Amazon FBM, or really interesting recently with Amazon FBM, that a seller came up with yesterday, because we're wondering why are sellers sending so much Amazon volume to us, given FBA is taking items and orders now. And so what they said was, if you use FBA and a non-Prime Amazon user comes in and purchases, then that item does not show free shipping. It shows actually paid shipping if it's an FBA listing to a non-Prime user. And around 1/6 of all of Amazon's volume is non-Prime. And so what this seller is doing is that they're doing an FBM listing matched to every FBA listing. So if it's a non-Prime user, they can actually get free shipping on the item. And they priced it like $0.01 more expensive. They can get free shipping on the item that's through FBM. And so they're doing that for every single listing. It's really interesting. A few top seller groups are going through it. So anyway, that's really common. So Amazon Direct is our first integration we have coming up, and then Google's kind of on the list. We have a few others on the list that we want to get to that we're pretty excited about. But Etsy's not on the list. But if you do think there's a big channel there and big opportunity there. We're certainly open to building direct integration.
All right. Next question. Nick asked, how many warehouses in total are there in the Deliverr network, and adding more, and ultimately how many? So currently, I actually don't have like the figure, and Michael, you'll have to tell me, like, do we share that publicly?
I mean, the thing is, you share it 1 week and then it changes the next week. If we were to look at this week, I think we're around 35.
Okay.
Somewhere in the 35 range. But if you look at our pipeline of new warehouses, there's so much going on. And also the way a warehouse comes on, it's not quite binary. They come on, we turn them on for a few days, then we turn them off, then we turn them on, then we turn them off, we turn them on. So we're throttling them for a while, and that could be going on for a month. It could be a few weeks, depends how the performance is, where we're really testing it closely before it goes fully on. So if you look at your distribution, you're probably in a handful of warehouses, but there's a lot more that maybe you're a little bit thinner on inventory on, and a lot of those locations are like these new testing locations. So plan is to be well over 50 in the next few months. Probably we'll be somewhere in the 60, 70 range by the end of the year. Especially as, another thing we've been doing is we're expanding our next day coverage quite a bit. So for people on our Shopify program, and that's been growing really, really fast. For merchants on that program, they are tying that to ads. They're putting 2-day, next day badging on their ads. And they're seeing really good improvement in conversion there. And so for them, they obviously want more next day coverage. So we're trying to get to at least half the country free next day enabled by the end of this year. Hopefully be able to get to 75%. That's our stretch goal, but at least 50% by Q4.
All right. And then, I see a question from Christian, and the question is, hey, will support replies be speeding up? Took 9 days for my last question. This question always comes up. It comes up for a good reason. We don't want support. We don't want questions that you ask to take 9 days to resolve. Like, we want to resolve questions as soon as possible. So, on the timing, it's like a key initiative for us to continue to speed up our support times. I actually don't have like the latest figures. Like, we have a meeting at 12 o'clock today where we'll actually like a recurring meeting every week in Deliverr where support response times and the number of tickets that are being solved is always discussed and then reviewed, and then we have action items for how to improve it. So I don't have like the latest figures for like where we at on our response times.
Yeah, I have a good understanding around that.
Oh yeah, then fire away. Yeah.
I mean, even now, you might see me doing support tickets every now and then. I do them late at night. So if you see a support ticket response, I put my name on them too, so you guys can chat. So yeah, I mean, it's certainly been improving. I think around around the support side, we talked about last time, we separated the team down to 3 components. You have activation, which is if you're onboarding, and then also if there's integration issues. That's number 1. That's one team. Number 2 is inbounds, so sending inventory to Deliverr. Number 3 is outbound, so shipping out inventory. What you saw through most of April was a ticket deficit, meaning that more tickets are coming in than are being resolved. And in that case, what's happening is you need to improve your efficiency. You need to obviously improve visibility, and you obviously need to improve the product, because at that point, there's certainly product gaps. And so what we've seen is that initially, a few weeks after, we got better visibility, and just with that, better organization, splitting up the teams, the outbounds team and the activations team started going into ticket surplus, where now they're resolving more tickets than are coming in, which was a big improvement. The third piece, though, was the inbounds piece, and that remained into a ticket deficit until around last week when we launched this self-serve non-compliance flow. And that's really what we needed to do, because the non-compliance tickets, if you guys had a non-compliance issue, was taking like forever. And the reason it was taking forever was we had to go and manually email the warehouse, the warehouse had to manually email us back, and then then maybe we have to go and reach out to the seller again, and it would just kind of go ping pong back and forth. And when you had inbound volume increasing 4 or 5x month over month, which is what it was doing, that just didn't scale. And so that's why we reshifted around our resource and our engineering resources. And sorry for anyone who has batteries. It's partly what got pushed aside and delayed so that we could build this. And so we built this non-compliance flow. And so far, it's been resolving things very fast for sellers using it. Definitely go to the inbound screen if you see it. It basically, you can resolve non-compliance inbound shipment within 24 hours. And so now it's starting to look like things are starting to level off, which is good. And we'll obviously monitor that. And obviously, now you have good visibility. You're improving things on the product side. There's another piece we need to automate, which is removals. That's also taking up a lot of time. But once we have that done, which should be done in the next few weeks, then it's really just a staffing piece, which that's very manageable and that's easy to solve. So it's certainly improving, but you may see a ticket sit around for 3, 4, 5 days, and that I do think the likelihood and the probability of that is going to decrease each week. Because you are seeing the trends going in the right direction.
All right. So there's also a question about a Sears direct integration from Amy.
Yeah, for Sears, I've not seen volume there that much for our sellers. I just haven't seen it. We go where the volume is, right? So if you think there's volume there, and if there's, but for example, with Wish, for a lot of US sellers, they weren't seeing a lot of success there, but there we had to do a deep dive into the app, look at, okay, what does well there? What does our selection look like? What's the level of support we can get? Can we build a 2-day badge and things like that? And because the channel was so, open and willing to work with us, and they're building this 2-day program just for Deliverr sellers on Wish, which is pretty cool, coming out in a week or so. And we were able to get somewhere, and for the sellers on that program, they're doing 20-30% of their overall volume is now coming through Wish, which is huge. And so if some of these newer emerging channels are willing to do some of those things, yeah, we're open to do that. So we're always open to chat with them and see kind of, can we build an interesting and unique program? And that's why I think Etsy comes to mind. Certainly one that's been growing and it's unique. But yeah, I have not been seeing that with Sears, but there's always something that could be missing, So I think those are things, if they are coming up, definitely bring them up with your account manager. The account managers are always looking at and getting an understanding around what channels are doing well and where they think there's channel opportunity. And so if they start seeing, okay, Nick's coming in with 100 orders a day on Etsy, well, yeah, we're going to pay attention to that. And that's certainly interesting, especially if, on your small SKU set, you have 20 SKUs and you're seeing that volume on Etsy. Yeah, we're going to take a look and we're going to see, okay, how do we replicate that? How can we also accelerate that? So I think a lot of that does get driven by you guys. And if you think there is a really big opportunity, a really big channel, certainly let us know and we'll talk to that channel.
All right. Another question is around analytics. So that we've shared today, Michael. Like the question is, is there any way for us to get these analytics sent to us directly or shared, somewhere in the Deliverr seller portal? I think there is a project that we have. It's currently on hold, but it's to create I'd say a seller dashboard. And the idea for this project is that we would be able to surface things that are really interesting and also like where you need to take action. So like Michael earlier brought up the example of, hey, I accidentally, you sent in an inbound, one of the products had a barcode that was unknown to Deliverr. We would then surface that instead of surfacing it in the inbound on that shipment, right? We would surface that in the dashboard and say, hey, this is something that if you take care of right now, your products will be available for sale faster. So I think that will be an opportunity for us to share this analytics information once we have in the seller dashboard, but we haven't started the work to build it yet. Now Now, I don't know if we're sending this out through account managers or anything, Michael. Is it?
We're not, but actually, if you request it, they're happy to talk about it. And I think that's if you want to get understanding around the category trends, we can share that. We cannot give it to you at a channel by channel level, but we can give you general, like what I talked about. We're happy to send that over. Yeah, I mean, there's really some unique things with Deliverr. I mean, we see kind of how different channels work and where the gaps are. Like, for example, if you look at what is the, like we were looking at this last week, if you look at the one category that does well kind of consistently in all the big non-Amazon marketplaces, it's vitamins and supplements, which is interesting. And so that continually does well, whether you're on Walmart, whether you're on eBay, whether you're on Wish. It replicates success very easily. Other categories are very hit or miss, like exercise equipment, fitness. It might absolutely crush it on certain categories, like do really well on Wish and then really not do well on Walmart, or vice versa. So yeah, definitely let us know. And that's something when you're talking through with your account manager, something to talk about, and talk about your category, talk about, okay, what do we think is the next best thing? And the account manager also has a lot of data around what are sellers with similar items, what are we seeing on the channels, and what do we think is going to work? And they have a priority list for your account saying, okay, what do we think are the next big places to go to? And of course, we're going to automate this whole process. We're going to put it in a dashboard, so it's going to be a lot easier and quicker to make these decisions. The other thing we're doing is some of that stuff we're already automating. So you might even see a promotion in your account to connect a new channel, and you get the first, I think it's like 15 orders fulfilled for free. So we're selecting certain sellers for that, and we're testing that out. And for those sellers, those promotions are not coming out of nowhere. Those promotions are actually intelligently determined based on your category, your item, and what we're seeing do really well. Because that's essentially how the Deliverr catalog intelligence works. When we see items doing really well, we try to find similar items. Similar like what you've seen with free inbounds, that's not a mistake. Those are items that we know are going to do well. We have within a certain confidence level that they are going to sell well. So we're going to start giving you guys more visibility into that, of course, as we get into the next few months.
So there's another question around the GTIN for 14. And one question I have is, I understand that it's unique to the SKU, but this is a question for you, Chelsea, and Stephen also. Like, even though it's unique to the SKU, does it represent a case pack in and of itself? So let's say it's a case pack of 10 units. If you use GTIN, will that be at the unit level on the product itself, or is it only at a case pack level? And because the reason that I ask is because what we don't want is for you to inbound a case pack of, like, say 10 units, and then there's a like that barcode, that GTIN barcode is on the outside of that case pack. And then what ends up happening is our picker thinks that, oh, like, I need to scan that, and then I'm going to ship the whole case out. That's what the order is for, as opposed to the individual units. So I guess my question is, does the value, is that on the unit level itself for the product that you want to send, or that you would want us to fulfill? And so if you can just provide like another comment and let me know, that'd be really helpful. Michael, there's a question from Amy. Will free inbounds continue throughout the rest of the year?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think we can't really speak to that specifics. And I mean, partly we don't entirely know. I think we're obviously continue to evaluate the ROI and see, okay, does this make sense? Does it not make sense? So yeah, I mean, we certainly are looking through budgets, we're looking through ROI, and we're continuing to test it out. I do think it is extending through June. So if you do have it, definitely take advantage of it. Yeah, I mean, we're just going to continue to evaluate, and I think what might happen is it continues, but the restrictions become a little bit more intense, especially as certain category surges in volume, it's going to come back down a little bit. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. So that's most likely what you're going to see. It'll probably continue, but in more limited fashion.
All right. There's a question from Steven on, we used one free inbound to send an item from our warehouse. Can we be eligible for another free inbound to send items from the supplier warehouse? Because this is not possible to add more than one shipping address for the same shipment. Please let me know. I think that this will be something you'll have to reach out to your account manager about to see if you can qualify for another free inbound. But I don't know just at a level like Michael, like whether we can just offer them here.
You mean offer another free inbound?
Yeah, because it's somewhat programmatic.
Yeah, unfortunately not. I wish I was that intelligent. I could just look at your catalog and make a decision. Yeah, so one thing you can do though, if you think you should be, is reach out to your account manager and say, hey, I would like to request a free inbound on these SKUs, and make a case saying, okay, this is why I think I sell masks or vitamin C or something related to a trend going on, or some outdoors product you're seeing that really do well right now. And so you would send something like that, and then basically what the account manager does is they take that and then they go to the data team. The data team looks at it and says, okay, should we do an expansion to our list or less? And then they go and they make a decision. And so that's kind of generally how it works if you're looking for an exception. Exceptions do happen, but they're exceptions. They're not the rule. So but certainly something feel free to always ask.
All right. Trying to see if I missed any questions. So there is a question around a bulk upload. So this is a popular request, especially for clothing sellers. And we are currently working on what we call a CSV upload. The thing is that the first version of this will be limited to only case packs and single SKU per box. And that's how the bulk upload will work. And with that said, I'm wondering, Margie, who reached out for this question, would it be helpful just to not have to search in Deliverr for the products that you want to inbound? So for example, if we let's say that we didn't solve the how that would end up being boxed, but we just solved the problem of, hey, you can take a CSV file, you put in the SKUs, and you put in the barcodes, and you put in the quantities, but the boxing of that you would have to do yourself. We wouldn't solve that right away because multi-SKU boxing CSVs are more complicated. Would that provide you with value? Because what I think is probably difficult for you is that you have fashion items, you have to select tons of different SKUs, and currently the only way to do that in Deliverr is you have to search for them one by one. And if we just made it a bit easier for you to be able to upload a CSV that just allowed you to plug in, you would plug in the SKUs, you plug in the number of units, the barcodes, and then at least you'd get through the initial part of the inbounding process, but not through the boxing phase. So just let me know if that hopefully provides you some value. And if it does, then hopefully we can figure out a fix for it. Right. And then Chelsea, I see your response. I think what I'm going to do is I'll follow up with you via email around this issue. And let me just see if maybe what we can do on our inbound team can look at expanding our format to GTIN 14. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing or misunderstanding any of the trade-offs if they exist with using that format.
Cool. I think we got through everyone. Great questions. All right, guys. Anything else? Just feel free to email us. Let us know. Always happy to chat. We'll keep these going. Keep coming on, asking questions, and we'll try to keep you posted. obviously trying to improve operational pieces as quickly as possible. But really appreciate you guys, bearing with us for this. Especially people in McDonough, Georgia, really appreciate it. I know it's it's a two-way partnership, and we really appreciate you guys bearing with us as we learn and as we improve. And so, thanks again for coming on, and also thanks for all the insights, the Etsy piece. I think it's great, and really appreciate it. It's great to hear from everyone. All right, sounds good. See you guys.
Bye, everyone.